good afternoon and welcome to this special Island Stat Sports Talk. I'm joined by Neil Speight, who is a member of the ICC board representing Bermuda and the Associates of the Americas. First of all, Neil, thank you very much for taking this opportunity to speak with me regarding the elections and just what the ICC is made of. Can you just give us a broad idea of the ICC from an inside perspective?
Sure. I think it's probably easier to go back to the basics, isn't it? The ICC is the world governing body for cricket. It has 104 members. Unfortunately, we still have this issue where certain members have certain privileges that others don't. So we have full members and associate members. Previously, we had affiliates. That category has been merged. So we now have the 10 full members in the past, the ones that played Test cricket. That has now been dropped, and many people will be aware that Ireland and Afghanistan were promoted, if you like, in 2017. So we have 12 full members and 92 associate members around the globe. So obviously the board is like any company. All companies have a board. That's the ultimate governance decision-making body for that. And our 92 associate members get together once every 2 years to elect which three people will represent them. Of course, this has been a very, very strange year, and meetings haven't been happening. So typically that would happen at the AGM, which would normally happen in June, July. Obviously, COVID has caused a lot of issues with that. So it didn't happen until recently. The other complication this year was, for those who follow cricket fairly closely, they would know that Imran Khawaja, from originally Singapore president and the current chairman of the associate members, actually made a run at the chairman post of the ICC itself. Unfortunately, he lost out to Greg Barkley from New Zealand. So the ICC had deemed they couldn't run the associate elections until they knew who the ultimate ICC chair would be. So yeah, it came out sort of hard and fast in November, and then off to the races. Everything was virtual, and the members cooperated to whatever they needed to do to change the articles. And in what was a very close battle, I managed to get across the finish line. So
yeah,
very happy and very tired.
Yeah, looking at the vote, I mean, you say there's 92 members. The person that got the most votes was what, 30 odd?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are 92 members. We haven't got to the stage where one member, one vote yet. So that's something that I think we need to continue to press for. There are the top 40 associate members get to vote. That's based on their performance and their scorecard ranking. So that's known, that's locked in for a 2-year period. And the rest of the world, the ICC world is divided into 5 regions. We're in the Americas region. Then you have Europe, Africa, Asia, and East Asia Pacific. So for each of those regions, there is one person who is elected by that region, and they have a vote. So the total vote count is 45. People may know Matt Featherston from Brazil, who is our non-voting associate rep. He would have been here when the Americas Regional Conference came here last year, before all the travel stuff went solidly downhill, didn't it?
Yeah.
So there are 45 eligible voters. Kenya is in a bit of a governance issue at the moment, so they couldn't vote. So the total vote count was 44. And the spread does make a difference. I mean, people tend to want to support people from their own backyard. The Asia group is 12. Americas we're only down to 5 now. Europe and Africa have 8 or 9 each. So it's not the easiest thing in the world to someone from a small region, and of course then a very small country too, to be successful in what often comes into a political battle.
Right.
But it's I think unfortunately a lot of people put their votes on the basis of issues. I know there's been a concern with a number of the reps previously who weren't actually supporting Imran for going for the chairman. So I spoke to many members that felt betrayed. But I think the major issues that exist today are pretty similar to what it has been over the last 10 years. I mean, everyone wants funding. No one
Right.
can get enough of that.
Yeah.
Everyone wants competition opportunities, whether that's male and female, and people want rights. So there's some big decisions coming up, and it's going to need a lot of advocating to get hopefully decisions fallen the right way, so that we don't go back to the dark days of 2014, the big three,
Right.
and they really made a move to take control and money to India, Australia, England, and not only did it not help cricket, all the countries got less money and they took more, but it actually sullied the sport, right? So there were parliamentary inquiries in England as to what Charles Clarke was doing, and I've always been one of those people that wants to leave the sport better than I found it. It's about my love for the game, and we're in a country where people love cricket, so it's fabulous to know that everyone knows what Bermuda's about. Everyone respects people from Bermuda, and here I am with a pretty big workload ahead.
Yeah. Previously on the board, you were the chairman of the associates. What does that position entail?
Means you're going to lose your hair. It's a lot of work. So
I don't have that problem.
I'm catching you up. Don't worry. Of the three people that are directors, the person with the most votes becomes the chair. So the chairman then, I guess, is the leader of the 7 elected reps. So I guess if we take this information further, there are 3 associates that sit on the board. There's also a committee called the Chief Executives Committee. So that's probably the second most powerful committee. And that's made up of the 12 full-member chief executives and 3 more associate reps. And then there is a global, we talked about the regional rep. There's one regional rep for the non-voting countries. One of those 5 gets voted on to as a global rep. And Matt, we're lucky from America, so that's Matt from Brazil. So the chairman has to coordinate the efforts of that 7. Is the point person. There are additional responsibilities in terms of what committees they sit on. So it's obviously all voluntary stuff. There's no paid positions, but you become the conduit for all the members and trying to shepherd the very different needs of 92 countries. And what's important for Falklands and Chile is very different for what Nepal and Scotland want. So there's no answer where everyone gets everything what they want. It's trying to maneuver to a best fit for all, and also positioning what's good for cricket.
Yeah. One of the things, and you mentioned it earlier, everybody's clamoring for money, obviously. We're in a region where from the surface, maybe you have a different opinion and a different view being on the inside, but from the surface, we struggle with our leaders or our full nation kind of giving the assistance like we see in other regions. I know that the West Indies on the field are having major problems, and everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But the ability to help off the field with on-field things, how do you hope your position in sitting down and talking with a full nation can kind of help the region get back to where it was once before?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe it isn't only just the full member in our region. Maybe there's something we can get from alliances from full members in other continents. So, as they say on the airplane, if something goes wrong, you put your own mask on first. And to a lot of extent, full members, and not just the West Indies, really have to do that. And particularly this year, they were pretty seriously hit. So, but there are things that full members that West Indies can do that don't necessarily have to cost them a lot of money. And if that's access to coaching courses and umpiring, getting into clinics, junior camps, whether we can get into competitions, that's a different matter. But certainly financially, West Indies would be one of those members that's not super well off. They're also spread out a lot too, right? So if Scotland want to play England, then they just got to get a bus, and an hour and a half later they're there. Whereas, okay, well, how does that work with Bermuda, Canada, and Trinidad? So but it is important. I know Dave Cameron very, very well. I work with him, and now Ricky Skerritt is the president of West Indies Cricket Board, and so I'll get to know him more, and I'll be working with him to see what can be done to help not just Bermuda, but also Canada, USA, and our other brothers in the region.
Yeah. One of the things I've been noting for years, and that's the eligibility of so many players going to the U.S. and Canada, and the development part of the people from the country is not actually prevalent, because they're using, still at the youth age, is still using kind of I want to say imported people, if I can say that. But from the ICC standpoint, obviously they don't mind, because they see the volume of cricket being played in these countries. But it's got to be a concern at some point in time that the people from the country are not developing. And I noted that in a place like even Argentina, they're starting to have more and more people from Argentina playing the game, as opposed to when we saw them here some time ago. They were made up mostly of people from like Australia and New Zealand and so forth.
Yeah, I think no, it's a big concern. I mean, I've always been a huge advocate for Indigenous growth and countries growing their own and having their platforms and their programs. And it's the balancing act as to how long do I have to go live in a country before I can qualify to play for that country, because that's where I'm having my children and living my life. And the rules were softened in 2017. And people can now move to a country and after 3 years play for that country. And I was against that, and got outvoted. And I've been pushed in to say, look, this is a real issue. We've gone too far. If you compare it to FIFA or to Olympic qualification criteria, the eligibility is a lot stricter, and we don't want to kill the game. We have to be aware we live in a globe where people move around. And it's you want to look off. You can't. Everyone's a human being, so you don't want to deter them from playing the game, but you also want fairness on the field. And I'm expecting a paper will be brought to the development committee in March, which will be reviewing the development criteria, which of course doesn't just impact us as associates; it impacts the full members too.
Yeah,
and you won't forget the World Cup final we just had, where Jofra Archer bowled that super over.
Yes.
And he wouldn't have been eligible to play had they not changed the rules in 2017. So
right.
It impacts everybody. I think the pendulum swung a bit too far in terms of making it too easy for Germany to play 5 Afghanistanis or whoever happens to be in their country. Canada always has a lot of immigration, so they're going to get cricketers. That's just the reality of life.
Right.
But we have to strike a balance of fairness, and we have to promote and support those countries that grow their own.
No, I know the ICC is working hard to get into the Olympics, but the Olympic criteria will expose a lot of this stuff due to the rules and regulations that the IOC have as far as eligibility. Now, I don't know if the ICC has gotten that far. I know they're talking about playing T10s. They're going to start with women in Birmingham 2022. But again, it's that eligibility that will be exposed, and people will be asking, so why is so-and-so able to play for this country in limited overs or tests or whatever, but can't play for that? So has that discussion, do you know if that discussion has been held around the table at the ICC level? Because again, it's going to be a big exposure.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably raise it twice a year, every year for the last 10 years. So that's one of the benchmarks, right? We're talking about eligibility. Where should the needle be on the dial as to who can play, who shouldn't play? And you have to look at the major other sporting events. IOC, you need to have a passport of that country to be playing for that country. FIFA is a bit softer and it goes to 5 years. So everyone's well aware that if we can get into the Olympics, and LA 2028 is our next opportunity, it will be equal access for men and women. It's it's not an easy proposition, because although cricket brings a lot of eyeballs, people want to see it in the Olympics. More people watch the Olympics if cricket is in it. But they have athlete quotas,
Yeah.
and there's limits as to, so cricket isn't being a team sport makes it a little bit more awkward. But it's there's lots of interesting little hurdles to get that across the line. I think it's definitely worth it. I mean, our friends in the West Indies will get turned into 17 countries. I often tease Tom
The
Harrison.
qualifiers will be very long.
Yeah, they say, right, well, who is going to play now? And then the English Cricket Board can't complain, because actually it's Great Britain that plays, so they've got to team up with some other
Right.
countries around
Yeah.
them. But those things aren't insurmountable. I think a bit
Right.
of common sense, you can say what's best for the sport, and let's move forward. And people want to win a medal. And from the surveys that I've been a part of, and it was one of the things I commissioned when I was first chairman of the ICC, is a full survey of every member and what's the impact. If we got in the Olympics, what does that mean for the 92? And it's massive in terms of government support profile. I think there's only one member that's currently holding out as to whether they would really want to jump on board, and unfortunately, it's the most influential one.
And we all know who that is. Yeah. But looking at it from a standpoint of our region, and I can only speak of our region because that's the one that I kind of tune into the most.
Yeah.
How much can the ICC assist, and in what areas would you like to see them help this region in any way? Because we're struggling like everybody else right now due to COVID, but prior to COVID, we're struggling with matches and just the logistics of doing the simple stuff, the financing of getting those coaching courses, getting the small things. But how do you envision the next 2 years for this region?
Well, I think we've got to put more emphasis on the grassroots and on the basics. I think there's been a real push for administration and governance, which of course is important. That's the foundation. But if you're doing all your admin and your governance right, and you're employing loads of people but no one's playing cricket, then you're not accomplishing very much. So we need to make sure we have adequate coaches. They're well trained. Same with our umpires, our match referees. We need to find a way of getting regional tournaments. Now, whether they are bilaterals and trilaterals with other nations, or whether they're ICC sponsored, it wasn't that long ago in my long lifetime that we would have 16s competing at under 15 level, and you could see the kids really enjoying it, really connecting to the game, and it gave opportunities for those on the side, right? Your match analysts and the scorers, they can actually, if they want to progress, if they want to improve, and if that's something they aspire to, then the opportunity is there. So the whole infrastructure grows if you deal with the basics of that. And I push for more cricket, and that in itself then pulls that forward. So most of it comes down at the end of the day to money.
Yeah. Does the ICC have a similar function, such as as FIFA, where FIFA had a program that allowed Bermuda and many other countries to actually build a facility, a purposely facility to house the home of football here in Bermuda? Does the ICC have a similar program where they kind of allocate funds to assist in that area?
No, I mean, that's something I'd love to see available. But they have never had one. And once the big three reallocate the money with a huge disproportionate amount going to India, England, Australia, then the kitty got a lot smaller. I mean, the pot is only so big. So if India takes one, then I have to lose one. And unfortunately, cricket has been the victim to that. So that's one of my major campaigns, but one of my objectives in terms of why I want to be there and what's important for cricket. Those of us who have been around a little while will remember there used to be 8 ICC events in an 8-year cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the change of the big three was to reduce that to 6, because they claimed they needed more time to play the other nations and play more bilateral cricket. And turns out they didn't. There wasn't more bilateral cricket. They did play more events themselves, but They didn't play more. So it's important we look to get back to the 8. If we can get 8 ICC events in a cycle, then the amount of funding that comes available is significant. And it's not just about money, right? The fans want to see a T20 every other year. The fans want to see 50 overs cricket. It's building up. The women's game is growing and becoming more marketable. So we have a very commercial-minded CEO at ICC, Manu, and he's done a very good job of maximizing, the opportunity, particularly on the digital side, of how we can leverage our sport, because every money that's made at a big event helps fuel grassroots all around the globe. So we need, that's coming up now. That's going to be in the next 6 to 9 months. That will be fully launched. And alongside that, I think the way events have been hosted in the last 6 years, they all tend to be going to the same 3 places. And that's very unhealthy. I mean, there are many countries that can host. I mean, we had a World Cup that we were in West Indies 2007. I can't remember when's the last time something went to South Africa. Those things connect with the imagination of the people and allow the sport to really magnify in that. So we have to have more events. That's what cricket wants. That's what the fans want. That gives us the surplus to allow us to grow our game. High performance is expensive. If you're going to run a semi-professional team and have them playing a lot of games, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So that needs to be fueled from somewhere. Bermuda's always done a very good job of getting non-ICC income, but it's a big pot that has to be filled. So yeah, that's going to be my major thrust would be to those 2 things. It's restoring 8 ICC events in an 8-year cycle and getting somehow on that LA 2028 Olympics.
Yeah. The other thing is, how much strength does the associates have at that table when it comes to discussion around the ICC? Being that you guys are, it's what is it, 3 of you? Yeah. So how much value do they take of your ideas, your information, and take it in?
Yeah, and even if you put forward a good idea, it doesn't mean they're going to agree with it, because they may have their own conflict. I mean, everyone at the ICC table is conflicted. So the 12 full members have someone. There's the 3 of us from the associate nations, and there's also Indra Nui, who's the independent female. Now, the voting constitution changed in 2017, so the associate members now have an equal vote. So there are 16 votes, and we're 3 of them. So yeah, there's obviously no guarantees of anything with that. But I think many of the full member directors and CEOs I speak to are aligned in what's best for our sport. So hopefully we can be successful. But as you say, it's a pretty uphill battle when you're going with a little pot gun and someone else has got a machine gun torpedo coming back at you. But yeah, my vote counts as much as India's. That's yeah, we just
they have a lot of people on their side.
But they have a lot of influence.
Yeah. The new president, in your dealings with him and just conversations, how do you find what his goal and objectives are for his leadership? How do you find that, and how do you think it will play out?
This is Greg now, is that the new chairman?
The new chairman, yes.
Yeah. So I knew Greg when he was on the board when I was there before. He's a very intelligent guy. He loves cricket in New Zealand. It's almost like a national sport for them. I mean, I always found a lot of congruence as to what associates Bermudians would be thinking with what he was thinking, in that they are a small nation. They punch well above their weight. 4 million people population, going out and beating much bigger ones you don't do that unless you're doing a lot of things right. And he's a very caring person that looked to do best for the sport. So I have that relationship. I'll be talking to him after 2 days after Christmas. The board are meeting often, and I'll be trying to explore his stance on how will the ICC go forward. There's a strategy that has been completed and presented to the board, and that will need to be accepted and rolled out. And trying to understand where his direction comes from will be important. I know he's supportive of the Olympics. I'm not sure that he's fully behind 8 events in a cycle, but we have to go to the board. I have to go to the board with facts and say, look, here's the impact of this decision, and here's the facts about how many games are being played and player burnout and other bilateral cricket. And fortunately, he is a person that will listen. I believe if you prove to him 1 + 1 actually equals 2, it doesn't equal 3, then he's a humble enough, human enough person to say, you're right, I understand, I may have been wrong on that. So I'm hoping he's going to be very supportive. I would have preferred Imran to be there, of course, but we are where we are. We go with the team that we have.
Yeah. One of my final questions would be the impact in which you had the first time around on the ICC board. Do you think the same approach you had the first time around will work this time around, or do you think you need to be a little more aggressive in trying to make sure that your view and your point or your ideas are considered much more strongly?
I don't think the approach changes. I mean, what the issues may be, the issues may well be different, and what the focus is. I mean, I got elected in 2008. I was chairman from 2010 2012, and at that point we had 28 associates taking all the money, and no one else got nothing. And it was a huge battle for me to help lead the membership away from this turkeys don't vote for Christmas stuff to say, well, actually that's horribly wrong. We should be more inclusive. We should be more fair. We should have a fair basis for assessing who gets what in funding. And that was a massive part of that initial time that I had spent there. I don't think anything's changed in terms of it's important to have relationships. It's important to be reasoned. It's important to listen to the other person's side. But I'm not a person that ever backs off on anything. I am a person that listens to our constituents, and I want to do right for my sport. At the end of the day, we're only here for a limited time. What we can do to our sport is limited, and I want to walk away at the end of it all with pride.
How do you envision working with Farah Grossi?
Farah
Grossi. And the associates in which she deals with, do you plan on meeting on a regular basis, whether it's via Zoom or whatever, just to get where they're at and then kind of take those type of things back to the ICC?
Yeah, I think with Farah, she's the regional manager, so it's important I stay in regular contact with her and obviously our membership, and try to make sure she understands. She hasn't got a massive cricket background, but she's from a playing or coaching or knowing that side of the sport, making sure she's doing what's most important for our membership. Obviously, being on the board puts me on the development committee, so I'm in regular touch with Farah's boss's boss, so I can hit it from 2 angles. So it's you need to have a patient wife, because it involves a lot of communication and talking to people at the membership level, talking with people at the board level, trying to join the dots up in the best interest of everyone, particularly in our region. That's very important.
Yeah. And I guess one last question would be, I touched on it a little bit with comparing the FIFA with the ICC, but can we see the ICC kind of helping associates gain property in their country where they can have a house of their own to develop cricket within each country? Because right now, probably Bermuda's not the only one. You don't have a home,
Right.
whether office nor playing field.
No, exactly.
But having somewhere that you can actually have training, a facility to hold meetings, and not have to borrow somebody else's time kind of thing. Is that something that you can kind of, or you'll be looking to kind of push ahead? Because again, Bermuda won't be the only one in that boat.
Yeah. I mean, there are many countries that do have their own home. They have their national ground, and that's where their national governing body sits, right? And that's something that we would definitely want. Now, how achievable that is, I don't know. It's on the agenda, but I think that goes to the point about the broadcast rights. I mean, they can't give what they don't have.
Mhm.
And the number is really significant. If we can get those extra events, then it creates more pockets of money. If we can undo more of the big three stuff that was done and unwind that, then more money can come out to grassroots, to infrastructure. And, that would be something that I'm sure everyone in the top, probably at least the top 50 to 60 associate nations would say, yeah, I want a quality ground, which is my home of cricket. This is my lord's, and this is where my office goes. This is where my nets are. This is where I can hold the coaching courses for my scorers and my match analysts. Hopefully you can have an indoor one, because the weather's not always perfect and gets dark nice and early too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But we're not at the level that FIFA's at. I know BFA did benefit from that in the past, and it's great to see. I love driving past it or jogging very slowly up that hill to see. But that's, yeah, we have to find a way of getting people to put more into grassroots cricket and allowing people to have pride in what I think is the world's greatest sport.
Yeah. Well, Neil, I do want to thank you for your time, and hopefully we can this can become a regular once you're finished with meetings with the ICC and meetings with the cricket board. We can jump on just to let the Bermuda public know what's going on regarding cricket, because we don't always get right from the kind of horse's mouth what's going on. And I think with your connection now within the ICC, Bermuda can get a better perspective of what's going on behind the scenes and what potentially is in the making for the associates and this region.
No, I'm happy to do that, and as long as I keep my wife happy, I'm sure she'll allow me the time to do that. So,
okay.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Enjoy your Christmas. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Have a good one. Okay.
All right. Thank you. All the best, Phil.
Bye.